Now we got this one mounted. Ran through a whole cycle, no vibration. Base still needs to be painted. That bad boy, we're gonna put a motor in it before we mount it. So later tonight, and these two bad boys will be going. Welcome back. Today's fun in the laundromat world is we got to remove two 60-pound washers. And we're not removing them because we're getting new machines. We're removing them because of the base. The base has come loose. And you start to see like rust like that. You'll see the floors popping there. This thing has worked itself out of the floor and I can no longer tighten it. This corner is about the best example. You'll start to see that gap in there. What happens is, it isn't that the anchor's pulling out of the ground, it's that the anchors actually can turn. And if your dealer installs it wrong or you install them wrong, this is what you'll be doing. Now these have only been in the ground, or these have only been in place for about 11 years. So not uncommon, you know, I mean the laundromat looks a mess, so bear with me. We're putting flooring in. But those two over there are not loose, the 5 here aren't loose. Just happens to be these two. The floor is thick, it's 6 inches here, so that's not the problem. What we gotta do today is pull them out, set them aside, and then pull that base out and re-anchor it. We'll actually move it over too. So we got our buddy Willie here to help, so let's get started. Is there another one like that? Nope. Don't get the long ones. There should be some short pieces. Why don't you put all those 2x4s over here where this garbage can is and lay them
like this, down like this?
Yeah, lay them lengthwise like that over here. So going
this way.
Yeah, I don't know if that's perpendicular. Horizontal. Yeah, horizontal. Yeah. Because we're going to move the garbage can and we're going to put the 2 washers right there and we're going to pull the pallet jack out from under them. All right, got that one, got that one. We got one in the back corner and this washer's ready to come out. They're talking about wide bulkheads and stuff. This is why. Getting behind these machines to pull them out, even to service them, can be a real pain if you don't have enough room. I'm lucky I was able to pull my top loader out to get to this. If I wasn't, man, I'd be just too narrow. No one thinks of this when they build these places. I'm gonna have to put you down for a second. Hang out there while I fall on myself. Everybody says, Keenan, we want to come along, but we're not listening. Oh, it's got water all over it, so it's going to be a pain. Oh.
I don't know what to do, but I'm ready.
Oh. Here's what you do. I'm going to move this around in front of you. What do you think of that? All right, Willie, we got the last one. Of course, it's going to fight us all the way to the end. Oh, success.
Okay, I'm going to be having Keenan right.
That pipe or PVC pipe, you can use PVC pipe. I like to use metal because they don't break. What we're trying to do is get the front of that washer on that pipe, and then you just slightly pick up on it. You can just slide it right onto your pallet jack. That's how the pros do it. A lot of people wonder how you move these. You move them with pipes. Once you get them somewhere, you make sure that you put them off the ground like that so you can get back under them. Then you don't have to fight them so bad. You ready, Willie?
Yep.
Willie's got her mop bucket right in her way too. Laundromat, huh? What do you think of that, Willie?
Just got one more, I think.
You know, I got all the nuts. That one should pop out. Basically what we have here is, that thing there is called a demolition hammer drill. And it's the only thing you need to install washer bases. If you try to use just a regular DeWalt hammer drill, small one, you won't have the power to get through that floor. And if you saw that bit, SDS Max, that is the size I get. It has to do with the input shaft of these bits. That's what's an SDS Max. There's also a Plus and something else. Max is the biggest. Obviously I go with the biggest stuff. Makes it super simple. Now what we'll do is take a pipe cleaner or a tube brush, and we'll clean this out with the shop vac, because all these holes have to be clean. We missed one because the paint went away because of water. Not a huge deal. The others will pick it up. But this is the most crucial step of installing your hard mount washers. If you don't want them to come loose from the floor, this is the most crucial thing you can do. You want the hole to be super clean. You want it to be the right depth. You also, and I'm going to show you what we use. We just use grade 8 bolts. Okay, now this bolt's not going to fit. And I'm going to show you why. Because the hole, see, look at that. Now I'm probably going to go get 5/8 instead of 3/4, because that's not enough coverage. But even 5/8 will not fit with their head. What we do is we grind this, and we will cut this off and this off and make it like an L shape or a J shape on both sides. And what that does is when your cement anchor concrete that you get, the epoxy, if you just had a round surface like this, it'll spin out eventually. And that's what happened to my bases. They weren't pulling out, they were spinning free. And even with this head, with this shape, there won't be enough stuff here. When you go to hit it, it'll actually drill it out and it'll spin right inside the hole. And so if you make it like a square 90 degree by cutting this off, it isn't going to be able to drill that hole out and make it so that the head can turn freely inside your drilled hole. I know it sounds crazy. It's what happens. That's why you can't remove the bolts, because they're spinning in there. And what happens is, and what happened to this one was, that back corner let loose because the grout that was up against her got wet. When you get water in your laundromat, a lot of water, over time, the grout under your machine gets wet and it breaks down because of the compression force of these machines spinning. And one bolt will loosen up, and that one loosened up, then this one loosened up, then that one loosened up, and then we had this corner loosened up. The rest were holding, but it didn't matter. Even if one bolt comes loose, that machine is going to shake so violently, it's going to sound like the drum is literally coming out of the washer. I cannot express enough, this is the most crucial step. Dealers will skimp on it. These guys used 1/2-inch bolts. I like 5/8. I also like thread rod, and then we'll shave the sides to make it flat so that it can't turn, because it will turn itself right out. I mean, I know you don't believe me, but it really will. That's good. I swear this laundromat's only busy when I'm trying to film, but I wanted to show you the anchors and what I'm doing. I take a regular bolt, grade 8 bolt, and you could drill a hole in the floor bigger than the head of the bolt, but the problem you run into is the anchor glue does not grab to this. If it was smooth and solid like this, it would just actually turn inside there. The head of it, since it's a hexagon, octagon, you know, they're different shapes. Octagon, since it's an octagon, 8 sides, sorry. It won't turn as fast, but it will. And what happens is there's not enough anchor glue on the sides of these that when you go to impact, it'll actually drill that and it'll turn. So what I do to solve that problem is I cut 2 sides of it off so it's square, got a 90-degree angle. Now when that glue, that anchor epoxy gets around it, it can't turn this bolt. The reason these bolts are turning is because somewhere along your lines, water has leaked down and ruined the grout. And the machinery grout has gotten weak and brittle, and then this bolt has a little bit of play and the machine starts to shake, and then it shakes a little more, and as it breaks down more and more the machinery grout, which is what this non-shrink grout is that I have here in the bag. As more and more of it breaks away, the machine is able to bounce more and more, and then that's how it tears everything up. Then it tears up the machine. But by doing this, you're able to unscrew the bolt later, which right now I'm not, because they're all freewheeling. They're not coming out of the ground. The anchors aren't bad, they're not popping out, it's just they spin in them and you can't get the nut off. Another thing to do with the threads is put automotive anti-seize on here, because any thread that's going to be exposed to soap or water is going to corrode just like a rust, just like when it's in salt. So it's going to get corrosion. It's going to be hard to, unless you work it back and forth and put some penetrating oil, it's going to be hard to get them off. So it's one thing I do also is put anti-seize on these, and then you won't have a problem getting the bolt back off or tightening it later, because if I was able to tighten a few of these, I wouldn't be in this process of what I'm doing right now. So just a tip. Anti-seize, cut the head off, that's what you want. I don't know how this video is going to turn out. biggest problem I'm running into is I shouldn't be busy on a Friday night. I am. Shouldn't be busy on a Wednesday night. I am. Shouldn't be busy on Thursday night. We were. None of this makes any sense to me in the laundromat world because usually Wednesday is dead. Thursday I have a little bit, and Friday I have nobody. It's the opposite. What you saw in some of that video was how you put the grout in. The grout needs to be like a consistency of mortar batter when you're doing like bricks. It needs to be able to stand up on its own, but it's tacky enough to stick to the bases. It's not going to stick a lot, but you want enough under there so it forms a wedge. Because what little you didn't get, or the difference you didn't get up in there, when you start cranking this thing down, you're going to tighten that down against that when it's dry. That's what the mortar's there for, the grout. I should call it grout. It's actually machinery grout. That's what it's for. So that's what I was mixing. I used one bag for 2 bases. Now that gap you saw was pretty extreme. Usually it's only about 1/2 inch. That was almost like 1 inch in some spots, 3/4 in most. That's extreme. Usually I try to stay from 1/4 to 1/2 inch because if you get too much, it just won't stay in there. The reason that was so bad was because a couple of the bolts just did not lay out right. Life lesson, use a bigger drill bit than the anchor you're using. Normally I use thread rod, so when I drill those holes I have a lot more play. This time I was using bolts. I should have got a drill bit that was probably a 1-inch bit or 1.25 inches. I don't care if it's bigger, because once you put that anchor cement in there, it's going to hold on to it. As long as you clean it out, it's going to be good. I should have drilled bigger holes. Once you've lined it up, once you've squared it off with a tape measure to the wall to make sure everything's symmetrical, then you do that and then you drill those holes. Make sure you get a bigger bit than the anchor you're putting in case you have to move this thing just a little bit, or in case you drill off just a little bit. That'll take that into account. Now in this base there was 2 holes I didn't put pins in. One didn't work out at all, and the other one I missed the hole somehow. Somehow I lined it up wrong, I don't know. When you have 2 bases that are welded together, the inner ones aren't as important, but the surrounding ones are very important. The corners are important, and the center beam on the ends is important. Technically all of them are important, but if you miss a couple in the inside, it's not a big deal, but don't try to miss like a bunch of them next to each other, because then you will have, the thing will actually hop and it'll actually break your grout. I'm tired, so it's hard to talk. The other thing, like I said before, is make sure when you put those anchors in that you don't just put a round pin in there. Make it square on one side, weld a piece of metal to one side, like a fin, something to keep it so it can't spin free. If you ever want to tighten these back up, use the anti-seize on the threads. Put something on that bolt, whether it be a welded edge, or you grind it flat on 2 sides, something to keep it from spinning, because it'll do it. Now all we got to do is get in here and mount the machines to it, which is going to be probably the easiest part of the whole process. But now the drain pipes won't line up, so we'll have to recut some PVC, which is minor. This is the product I like to use. It's called Rocket Anchor and Patching. This stuff I love using. I get it at Granger, but you can get it online. You can get it at Amazon. This is what I use now. This bag here was just from Menards. It's a non-shrink grout. It says here, capable of handling high load transfers, anchoring, base plate grouting, which is what we are doing. And I got some on the floor for you. I'm gonna find the other bag. Now this is what Menards carries for anchoring stuff. And see how the hole's bigger than your anchor? That's a perfect example. A lot of times, if you do this right and you drill your hole bigger, like what I could have done, plus my anchors had those, I use thread rods, so I really don't like using bolts. I'll probably never use bolts again because I couldn't drop them down in after my base was laid on the floor. What I like to do is lay it on the floor, level it, pour all the anchor cement in the holes, and then you drop your thread rod in all your holes with your washer, your lock washer, and your nut already on. This time I had to do it a little different because I had that edge underneath there, the head of that bolt, because I'm trying something just a little different, but that's why. But normally I like to pour it all in. I don't like to try to shove it in like you watched me do, because I want to make sure that hole's completely filled. I don't want any voids in it. You don't want any air pockets, and that's an easy way to get an air pocket. If you notice, I was shaking the bolts and pulling them up and down, so I was working that stuff in there to make sure I didn't have any air pockets. So I'm pretty confident it's pretty good, so we'll see. Now I just need to mount the machine. this is what it looks like when it's dry. This is that machinery grout. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's pretty cool. If you introduce water to it over time, you can screw it up, but that's what it looks like. That's what you want. And see the base, you got on the base, it's not bad. We'll paint that black and you'll never even notice. That thing's in there. Now we need to tighten it down. We tighten those bolts down all the way around and we'll be ready to put the machines back on. Hopefully I brought the right socket. I'm really only worried about the base on this side. I'm going to tighten both sides, but I can come back in and tighten that more because I'm only installing the one machine this morning, and then I got to pull the motor out of the other machine. Now we got this one mounted. Ran through a whole cycle, no vibrations, base still needs to be painted. That bad boy, we're gonna put a motor in it before we mount it. So later tonight, we're gonna put a motor in this, and then we're gonna mount it. And these two bad boys will be going. The drains will be redone, that's just temporary, because that end needs to be cut off, because the machine has now moved from over there to over here to make us line up, this edge line up with our top loaders. Before there was a gap here, just like there is here now, which I didn't like. Here I'm gonna put a garbage can, and then later what we're gonna do is take that island out, make it smaller, and put bigger machines in here, like more 60s in here. So then they'll actually start right there and they'll go back, and we'll just make our bulkhead like only about a foot, 18 inches wide. And the reason we can do that at this laundromat is we have top loaders here, and these panels we can pull off if we need to get to repair those machines. Earlier there were so many people in here. I'm gonna have to start mounting my camera to me because there were so many people in here I could barely work on the machine, let alone set up a camera. We're gonna film installing the other one and talk more. But in the meantime, I had two dryer problems. A coin stuck there, and the infamous dryer drum bearing wheel, whatever you want to call it, went out on this one. I could hear it scratching the inside of this pretty good. Well, as I'm working, when I'm in a laundromat, I take painter's tape, and when people are using a dryer, I put this on them. And that way I know, hey, go check that before you leave. And that's what this was. Willie was playing hooky. We just had to unmount this. These are supposed to be able to undo from the inside without taking this shaft off. It is impossible. They all work themselves free. It's a bad design. So you're gonna still have to take your covers off. Yay. This is what it looks like clean. It's Willie clean.